How big is the USA, actually?
We're about to find out.
And so I'm going to start the video right now by letting you guys know we did not grow up in the U.S.
Yes, we are not American.
So we're not going to know this, and this is why we're doing it.
Yes.
But, however, there's going to be people that skip the intro and they drop a comment right now about something that we make a statement about in the video.
Yep.
And it's going to be something along the lines, I think, of our education system failed us. That we don't even know, that we have Americans that don't even know how big the country actually is. But, all jokes aside, I am curious about this because I've seen, we see the maps, right? The Atlas maps that you see all the time, and they're very deceiving. We've talked about this, I think, briefly before about certain countries or continents look huge on the map, and then you compare it, and it's like, wait, I thought, this country was bigger than this country. So I think I'm hoping we're going to get into some of that, at least in this one. No idea really what to expect. We were just looking for a different video to check out, and this came across our to-do list.
Yeah, I'm excited to check this one out too.
Nothing to add? Are you a geography major or?
Oh, most definitely not. So no.
You haven't traveled to everywhere in the USA and been able to see this firsthand?
No, definitely not everywhere.
Is there anywhere in the USA you haven't been that you would like to go to?
Yeah, I think I'd probably like to go to some of the states that have really nice hiking trails, like maybe Utah or Montana potentially.
Yeah,
I've been to most of the main really big cities, like Miami, New York, Los Angeles, all of that. I'd also like to go to Texas.
And I'm sure you guys will have some advice down below because Sam said she likes the idea of going hiking somewhere nice and that, nature trails, right? So maybe you guys have some suggestions down below. If you have any other suggestions for content, drop them down below. Hit the like button so you can help this video reach more people. We appreciate all your support. Hit the subscribe button if you enjoy the video. Other than that, let's check out how big is the USA, actually.
This video was made possible by Wix. If you're ready to create a website, head over to wix.com/go/infographics to try out one of their premium plans right now. The United States is currently the world's sole superpower with military installations around the world. As a country, its geography spans from subtropical forests to rolling plains, scorching deserts, and Arctic wastes. But just how big is the US really in comparison to the rest of the world? Hello and welcome to another episode of the Infographics Show. Today, we're taking a look at how big the US really is. The US is approximately 5,680,000 square miles, with terrain that varies dramatically. Only Russia at 10.6 million square miles and Canada at 6,205,000 square miles are larger than the US.
Wow.
Its three biggest states, Alaska at 663,000 square miles, Texas at 270,000 square miles, and California at 160,000 square miles, combined would be the 17th largest nation in the world, immediately after Sudan at 1.15 million square miles, and right before Libya at 1 million square miles. In total, the US is larger than the 107 smallest countries in the world combined. With about 327 million people, the United States is also the third most populated nation on Earth, having a total of 4.28% of the total world population. With a net yearly migration rate of approximately 900,000 people, the US is by far the one place the rest of the world wants to live, with Germany coming in second at 350,000 migrants, and Turkey in third with 325,000 migrants. In the US, 83% of the population lives in cities, with its three most populated cities being New York City with 8.5 million people, Los Angeles with 4 million people, and Chicago with 2.7 million people. All combined, the population of the US's three biggest cities is equal to the population of Chad with 14.5 million people. Just these three cities alone are also more populated than Cuba with 11.5 million people, Belgium with 11.3 million people, and Greece with 11.2 million people. When counting the greater metropolitan area, New York City is the 10th largest city in the world, with a total population of 18.6 million people, just behind Cairo with 18.8 million people, and just ahead of Dhaka with 17.6 million people. This would make the greater New York City area the 63rd largest country in the world, just ahead of Syria with 18 million people. The U.S.
That's pretty damn big. I mean, That's like half the size of Canada, 18.6 million people.
Yeah,
the
in
whole
New
country.
York City, which is like a tiny, like little
Yeah,
freaking.
yeah, that's what I'm saying, right? Because they said in the beginning, Canada's one of the biggest countries,
Yeah,
square
like
foot
landmass wise. Yeah.
and yet they have 50% of the people of New York City.
Yeah, like which is insane, and that it would literally be, what did they say, the 56th most populated country if it was a country itself.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna check what. So this came out 6 years ago as well.
True.
So this has obviously changed, and I think part of the immigration stuff. That's why I was kind of looking at that, like those numbers, because they've obviously changed. We know recently that's been much more of a hot topic. We'll say, and even the immigration numbers, because we saw Turkey, I think, was number 3. From that standpoint, that's definitely, I don't think there's any way that that's possible. That still holds true. I think Canada's got to be up there in
Yeah.
terms of the numbers
For sure.
of immigration. And definitely the U.S., I think, has had an increase as well. But anyways, that was interesting off the bat. That New York City thing really blew me away.
Lots of people there.
17.6 million people. This would make the greater New York City area the 63rd largest country in the world, just ahead of
63rd.
Syria with 18 million people. The U.S. is the world's largest economy with a gross domestic product of $20.4 trillion, or 23.3% of the total global economy. China is just behind the U.S. at $14 trillion and 16.1% of the total global economy. When measured by purchasing power parity, or the price of goods and services versus individual incomes, the U.S. comes at number 2 to China, whose GDP PPP is $25.2 trillion. This means that while the Chinese economy is about 30% smaller than the US's, Chinese individuals have on average 20% greater purchasing power in their own country. The 3 biggest economies within the US states are California with a GDP of $2.6 trillion, Texas with a GDP of $1.6 trillion, and New York with a GDP of $1.5 trillion. Altogether, these 3 states would be the world's 3rd largest economy, just ahead of Japan with a GDP of $5 trillion.
That's wild.
California's economy alone is as big as the United Kingdom's, Texas's is as big as Canada's, and New
crazy.
York's is as big as South Korea's. The United States also has the best equipped military in the world, though it's only the 3rd largest at 1,282,000 active duty personnel. Ahead of it are India with 1.4 million active duty personnel and China with 2.1 million active duty personnel.
Also
the U.S.
changed.
spends over $610 billion on its military every year, or
More than that
3.1% of its total GDP. 35% of the world's total military expenditure, and more than the next 9 nations combined. Just behind it are China with $150 billion in expenditures, and Saudi Arabia with $76 billion in expenditures. The United States also has the most military bases in the most foreign countries in the world, with approximately 800 military
Wow.
installations in 80 countries, possibly more military bases in more foreign lands than any nation or empire in history. The cost of
100%.
maintaining these bases alone is about $156 billion, more than China spends on its entire military. On the civilian side, the U.S. has the world's 3rd largest police force, with 913,000 total police officers, placing it just behind India at number 1 with 1.9 million police officers, and China with 1.6 million police officers.
Wow.
In the realm of healthcare, the U.S. is the most expensive nation on earth, with a health expenditure per capita of $10,350, placing it ahead of Switzerland at $7,900 and Germany at $5,550. While on average the rest of the world spends about 10.3% of its GDP on healthcare, the U.S. spends 18% of its GDP on healthcare.
And that's gotten so much worse too.
Yeah.
Like the spending, I think it's in the 20% now that they
Yeah.
spend as a percentage. And the healthcare costs, right? It makes no sense. Like you spend so much money on healthcare and it ends up being so expensive for everybody,
Yeah.
right, in the country. And I'm definitely not, on the side of we should give government more money, because I don't think it gets managed or spent very
No.
well. But I that's where we come to that idea of, where's all that money going? And we know where it's going for the most part. It's going to pharmaceutical companies, right? Which are not designed to keep people healthy, which means that people end up paying for healthcare when, if we had a proactive approach, that may not be the case. But I just found it, this is 6 years ago, and it's crazy how, healthcare seemingly has been a topic of discussion for quite a while.
If anything, it should be getting better, not worse.
Yeah. And I mean, like we grew up in Canada, right? And so, everybody tries to tout Canada's healthcare system. And although like emergency care is obviously great, you don't have to worry about that. And that can be, life-saving in some instances. The specialist care and general practitioner care is like terrible. It's brutal. And, so that's an area where even people talk about Canada's healthcare system. We look at it and we're like, it's not good and it needs to be improved. So I can only imagine what people feel in the US, but in general, it's really frustrating to see how much money gets spent and wasted for something that's so important. What's more important than your health, right?
Yeah, 100%. I also found the police stats interesting because I would wonder how that has changed since the whole defund the police situation, right? Like, I don't think they have nearly as many police personnel as they used to.
I don't know the stats on that for sure. I was surprised to see China and India having so many police officers. But I don't know the statistics.
Yeah, I'm not sure specifically, but I saw something recently that came out that said that the police personnel has been cut back since the defund the police movement. And that's why crime rate has gone up and unreported crime has gone up because there's not enough people to deal with it.
Yeah. And I think, I don't know, again, I'm not familiar with the US statistics entirely on that front. But I do think part of it as well is like police officers don't get paid nearly as well in the US. And so the incentive to become a police officer, and probably a good one at that, is not there. So it's just crazy. You have the leader of the world, and we've come so far in so many respects, but we've just highlighted two areas which are obviously, there that can be improved, right?
Yeah.
So let's continue and see how we finish off.
$50, while on average the rest of the world spends about 10.3% of its GDP on healthcare. The US spends 18% of its GDP on healthcare. The United States is a large, complex nation, big enough to host several different distinct accents within its own borders. Its people are hardworking and industrious, leading the world's economy. But despite what recent political events might indicate, they're also the most welcoming nation in the world, with 3 times the number of immigrants than nations in either the number 2 or number 3 spot in a global comparison.
The US isn't the only welcoming place in the world. We've never felt more welcomed than when we signed up with Wix to build a website.
Wix.
Regardless of what exactly your business or hobby is, one thing's for sure, Wix Life
has put the size of the US called What If the World Was One Country? Thanks for watching, and as always,
All right, so I guess there wasn't much left in the video there before we went on our rant.
Yeah, I didn't realize there was an ad there at the end.
Yeah. So anyway, Sam, any closing thoughts on the video as a whole?
I mean, I thought it was interesting, and I feel like the way that they put it into perspective to showing it compared to other countries, or kind of like comparing it to what this would be if it was its own country with just a few states or a few cities, was a good way to put it into perspective. Obviously, like you said, this is a little dated, so I would be interested to know, like, what this is like now if it was updated.
Yeah.
But I thought it was cool, and they did a good job.
I really like the statistics that they had in there. They really rapid fired the statistics, and I thought we were just going to get into the geographical idea of it,
Yeah.
but they went into more details, and they were able to squeeze in a lot in 6 minutes, all those stats. So it was short, quick, to the point. And
I'm also a visual person, so I liked all the little infographics.
I don't know, some of those graphics were a little questionable in my opinion, but
I thought they were fine.
But we have a differing opinion on that. We'll find out what your opinion on this video is by reading those comments that you leave for us down below. Just keep it PG. If you disagree with some of our ideas related to healthcare or the police, that's fine. Let's just keep it PG. And other than that, if there's other countries that we should learn about, maybe Britain or other areas of Europe, or maybe some place in Asia that you guys want us to check out, let us know and give us other suggestions for content. We appreciate all your support.
Yes, we do.
Thank you so much for making this channel a special place to be. We love you all, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks so much, guys. See you next time.